As you may know, there are a ton of internet challenges these days. From the wall flip challenge to the cinnamon challenge. Some of them are pretty harmless and some of them are actually pretty dangerous, and you'd be a complete idiot to actually do something like that. But on the topic of the dangerous one, we have one challenge that makes all of those dangerous challenges seem tame in comparison. What is this challenge, you may ask? Well, you just have to read the story to find out. So, join me as we read the story called Hands. The worst thing I've ever done in my life happened about 12 years ago. When I was a 16-year-old kid living in Cleveland, Ohio. It was the early fall when the leaves were just starting to turn orange and the temperatures were just starting to fall, hitting at the freezing chill that was only a few months away. School had just started, but it had been going on for about a month now, so all the excitement of going back and reuniting with old friends had been replaced with the realization that we were captives in a place that only wanted to load work upon us. Understandably, me and my friends were all eager to do something that might remind us of the worry-free, responsibility-free days of summer. Earlier that year, about the time the last school year had let out, one of my friends from work, McDonald's, which some people think is lame, but I always had a great time there, had taught me a technique to make yourself pass out with the help of an assistant. It works something like this. One person would rapidly take 10 deep, heavy breaths, and on the 10th, squeeze their eyes shut and hold their breath as tightly as possible while crossing their wrist over their heart. The assistant would then give the person a huge bear hug from behind and squeeze the person's wrist into their chest bone. Within seconds, the person holding their breath would lose consciousness. The assistant was there in a perfect position to make sure you didn't totally collapse and crack your skull open on the sidewalk. The effect only lasts for like a second or two. It wasn't like we were putting ourselves into comas or anything, but it felt like you just had been out for hours. And when it come to, the distorted feeling of not knowing where the hell you were and what you were doing was pretty awesome. Now, I know what some people are thinking. What the fuck, dude? Are you fucking retarded? And yeah, I know, we were probably killing about 1 million brain cells each time we would knock ourselves out. And I think probably my memory has suffered for it. But to a boy as hell 16-year-old, I thought it was hella cool. All the effect of it getting your lights punched out with none of the pain of getting hit in the face. I tell you to try it to see for yourself, but after what happened, I would never recommend it to anybody. One interesting side effect of doing this, which was really most of the reasons we did it, was that while you were out, you have extremely lucid and vivid dreams, which you could always recall upon awakening. After all, you were only asleep for about 2 seconds. We were good kids and had never and would never try drugs, so to us, this was like a poor man's LSD. These visions in some way were usually related to what you were looking at right before you passed out. For example, once I dreamt that I was climbing a mountain, way up in the Himalayas or something, but there was a handrail there. Who the hell puts handrails on 20,000 feet? When I came to and remembered where I was, I realized that I had been looking at the staircase at the corner of my girlfriend's living room. Another time, I had a vision of Fred Flintstone smiling and holding out his hands in front of a mural with the DARE logo. That's Drugs Abuse Resistance Education, a program cops teach in public schools. You've probably seen the bumper stickers and the infomercials. I woke up and saw that my friend Ben had been standing in front of me right before I slipped into dreamland, and that logo was on his sword. Where Fred Flintstone came from, I have no idea. The vengeance will always Monday things like that. Always. Until that fateful day. Like I said, school had been going on for about a month, and we were always sick of it. We were hanging out one Saturday in the field, which was really a establishment for the electric company to run their high voltage line. A few of us were sitting on the metal beams on the top of one of the towers. My friend Mike was climbing up to the second tier of the beam so he could jump the 8 or 10 feet to the ground. I thought it was stupid, but hey, I'm the guy who thought it was cool to induce unconsciousness by severing our brain of oxygen, so who am I to judge? It was a warm day for October, but the light gray of the sky was slowly getting darker, and in Cleveland, in October, that probably meant that before long, the temperature would soon drop from a comfortable 70 to about 50 in the course of a few minutes. And if we were really unlucky, an ice cold rain would start to fall. The air was always damp and heavy, and we could hear the quiet buzzing of the high tension wires above us. I sure as hell didn't want to spend the last few moments of a pleasant Saturday afternoon watching this dumbass climb partway up the high tension tower, jump down, complain about how that one killed his feet, only to climb up and do the same stupid shit all over again. Hey, let's make ourselves pass out, I said. By that time, it wasn't as much fun as it had been in the early summer where we first discovered it, but it was a hell of a lot better than what we were doing. Vince was up for it, and so was Whistled, but Mike, the guy jumping off the tower, said, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?" "Holy shit, you haven't been knocked out before?" Vince said. "No," was the response. Mike had been at his mom's house all summer, so he haven't been in on all the fun we've been having. "Dude, you gotta try this. Watch, we'll show you." Vincent and I got off the tower, stood in the grass at the center, and I did the customary 10 deep breaths. I squeezed my high sun and held my breath so hard that if they haven't been sucked, they probably pop right out of my head. Then I felt my friend clamp down on my arms in front of my chest, and suddenly, as if there was nothing more natural in the world, there was a giant lobster climbing around a lobster cage. And I was under the ocean, with seaweed growing from the sandy bottom underneath my feet. The next thing I remember, I was awoken, and Vince and Richard were asking me, "Dude, what did you see? What did you dream?" The back of my head was killing me. "Oh, fuck, dude, did you let me fall?" I wasn't really that heavy, but Vince was pretty weak. He just stood there looking guilty, and Richard told me he had. "What did you see though?" he asked. I rubbed my head and said it was a lobster. It was pinching Vince's head off of his claws. I turned to Mike, watching from the L-shaped beams above, and said, "See? It's fucking awesome, dude." "Whatever, I don't trust any of you to do that kind of shit to me." "Oh, come on, man. You gotta try it. It's not more dangerous than what you're doing right now. I promise you, I won't let you fall like this little bitch did." He squinted in a way people do when they're trying to decide if what they were thinking of doing is worth the risk or trouble. He jumped down one last time, got up and said, "Fine, but only once." If only he had thought a little harder or just flatly refused. He repeated the 10 deep breaths, with me as the assistant to make sure he didn't fall. He held his breath, and I helped him slip into the other place. It's something I regretted ever since. That, and when I think back on all the things I wish I'd done differently in my teenage years. Goals I should have tried for, classes I should have tried harder in, all the things I should and shouldn't have done. Putting him in that bear hug and squeezing him into unconsciousness is the thing I most regret. I felt the dead weight sip from his feet into my chest, And he was a pretty big guy, but I made sure to let him down easy and knock his head against the hard-packed door. Just as I laid him on the grass, he came back. He woke up screaming, "Fuck, holy shit, oh my fucking god, get away from me, get the fuck away from me!" He screamed as he leaped up to his feet. He then flailed his arms around his head like a madman. We all jumped back, afraid of getting hit in his frenzy, but more afraid, so scared we almost set our plans of what we were seeing. After about 5 seconds, which is about twice the time it normally takes to a person to realize where they're at and remember what they were doing, he just sat down. Holy shit, holy fucking shit. He was breathing heavily, gasping deep breaths, and hunched over at the corner of the tower. It's a wonder that in his maddened state he didn't run right into the supports and knock himself out for real. But he just stood there, bent over at the waist, then fell to his knees. With his back towards us, he started walking and wiggling his, just clutching his hands and murmuring to himself. "Holy motherfuck," said Vince. "What the hell did you see?" But Mike didn't answer. We approached him slowly. As we drew near, we could hear him quietly sobbing. In our macho world, that was normally a crime punishable by death, but at the time, of course, we didn't say a word. I reached out a hand to his shoulder, but as soon as I touched him, I turned so light that he shouldn't have been able to feel it at all. He shrieked and jumped away, leaning his back into the corner of the tower. He pressed up hard against it, staring at us with a look of terror in his eyes so real that I think we were demons from the pit of hell. If ever, in those few moments, I thought he was putting on a show just to fuck with us, that look put all my doubts to rest. That, and what happened afterwards, of course. None of us said anything. But after about 10 minutes, Mike had calmed down enough that Richard was able to coax him to his feet and lead him back to his lounge. As I had suspected, the temperature had fallen like crazy in just a few minutes, and just as I figured it would, the freezing cold drizzle was starting to fall. I told Vince that I was just gonna go home and I'd see him tomorrow. We always spent the evenings and rainy days playing Mortal Kombat on our SNES, but he didn't inject. I think he probably wanted some time alone to reflect on what horrible thing we have just done to our friend, just like I did. The next day I went to see how Mike was doing, but he and his dad were gone the whole day. I asked him later where he went, but he wouldn't tell me. I think I must have been a therapist because by Tuesday, the next time I saw him, he seemed to be a lot better, if not a little zoned out. I figured he got some drugs to calm his nerves, but that was just a guess. I never really found out. Over the next few days, the four of us just hang out, and while Mike was quiet, he didn't say anything about what had happened. We just talked about stupid, unimportant stuff. Girls we liked, classes at school we hated. I wish we had said something to him now, though I don't know if it would really have helped. We had no idea what we were facing, and to this day I still have no clue. But we avoided the subject about what happened that Saturday day, and the practice of passing out in general, we avoided like the plague. It wasn't until the following Saturday that he said something related to what was happening to him. We were walking down the quiet street of our neighborhood, towards the wooded foliage that crosses the creek that runs between the houses, separating the development into halves. I was going on about this hot girl who was a grade above me, who occasionally wouldn't give me the time of day, and he, staring at the ground, walked on with his hands in his pocket. Suddenly, out of nowhere, right in the middle of one of my sentences, he said, "I won't be here much longer." What? "They're coming again tonight. I don't think I'll be able to keep that out this time." Hey dude, Or what are you talking about? Who's coming tonight? The hands. The voices. At this point, I was like, holy shit. I could feel my breathing get quick and shallow, and I felt my face and hands get hot to hear him talk so matter-of-factly about some horror that I couldn't even imagine. But I'll never forget that conversation. It's etched into my mind like the stone tablets in the 10 Commandments. I stammered for a few moments, then said stupidly, What hands? At night, I looked at the tree out my window. Then it goes all black, and the hands, dozens, hundreds of them, push in against the glass. What do you do? I push back all night, but I'm tired. I can't keep them out anymore. And the voices said that I have to let them in. Little kid voices, little kid hands. He lowered his voice to a whisper, but I could tell in what he said next that he was struggling to keep the panic at bay. Sometimes I see little faces, he said in a trembling voice. We had come to the walkway up to his house. He stopped and finally lifted his face to me. Tell Vince he can have my Super Nintendo. He doesn't have one, and his mom sure as hell won't buy him one. Witzer can have my CDs. I know you guys don't like Raph, but he does. I started to say something, but he turned and walked up to his house. He went inside and closed the door. How I wish I would have went up and knocked, told him that I would have stayed the night. But we were 16, and at that age, I don't really do that anymore. So I just went home. I didn't even answer the door for Vince when he came over later. When I went to bed, I didn't sleep well, and I occasionally listened to every creak and groan that the house made, listening for the voices of multiple children. I normally slept with the curtains open, but tonight I closed them tight. The next day, we learned that someone had broken into Mike's house. A police car was there in his driveway, and I about hit a brick when I saw it. Later, my worst fears were confirmed when I learned that it was Mike's bedroom window that had been broken into. He was missing, was all they told us. The cars asked all three of us a ton of questions, and people from the Center for Missing and Exploited came in and asked us more questions. I sure as hell looked like a guilty piece of shit, but when I said I don't know what happened, it was, after all, halfway true. They were looking for some pervert that had abducted Mike. So, no matter how hard they guilted me, they couldn't get any information related to that. Of course, so finally they gave up. It was on milk cartons and missing children TV shows, but to this day, his case still remains unsolved. After it was all over, I went to the library to research what the fuck happened. Because in those days, while the internet was a resource tool, it was only for rocket scientists or people who could afford a $5 million computer. I couldn't find much. The closest thing that I think is related is something that I only discovered years later. In my junior class of world history, apparently a distant priest used to seal themselves in constant for just long enough a time to almost die. They would then be resurrected so they could relate the things they saw in the netherworld while dead to the other priest. I can only figure that perhaps that the electricity in the air or the weather made Mike go under deeper than we have ever had and give him an experience something like what the Egyptian priest had. But Vince knocked me out too, and it's almost the same spot where Mike was standing while I did it to him. Could he have just been more accessible to the car of that other place? Or had knocking my head on the ground somehow jolted me free of their hold? I don't know. I don't think I ever will. But sometimes it makes me afraid.